All right, thank you very much, Wishi. So, hello, my name is Judith, and I'm co-chairing this session with Katrina. So far we heard about imaging-specific data management system, and now we're going to move on to outside of imaging. Earlier this week, we had many people describing how being a CZI imaging scientist was a life-changing opportunity, experience. And for me, and for Mia Selavi, having the opportunity to work with the Center for Open Science and the Reproducibility Project in cancer biology was such a life-changing event. So now it's with great pleasure that I'm introducing our next speaker, who is Nici Pfeiffer. Nici is a Chief Product Officer at the Center for Open Science, and she's also a PI for the NIH based program called GRAY, which stands for Generalist Repository Ecosystem Initiative. So please welcome Nici.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the warm introduction. Judith and the other co-organizer. And thank you for these lovely talks that have preceded mine, and I actually plan to refer back to those a few times. So thank you for your attention. So the first thing I just wanted to follow up on what Judith provided in my introduction. My organization is the Center for Open Science. And we're a nonprofit with a mission to increase the openness, integrity, and reproducibility of research. But the core part of that I really wanted to mention, which Judith gave a great example of this work, is that we see advancement of that mission through a systems approach. Obviously, we're an ecosystem, we're interconnected in many ways, and similarly, the change towards more open and reproducible practices requires sort of an interdependent systems style approach where you need infrastructure to make it possible, you need sort of easy user interfaces and systems that are interoperable to make all of that much more easy to do, not just possible to do. Also, we need to work within communities to make all of those open practices more normative, as well as rewarding, incentivized through how we advance in our careers, we advance in our knowledge sharing, as well as some of the policies that support all of that work in the ecosystem to make parts of this required. So with that sort of backdrop, I just wanted to mention, as was provided in the introduction, our team is broad. There's a number of different activities that we're doing at the Center for Open Science. The one that I represent is the infrastructure. So we do have a platform, the Open Science Framework, or OSF, which is open source. It's free to use for researchers. It's also free for consumers to come and discover content and to take that into their own work. But we also have folks within our team that do their own research. So we've got, as Judith mentioned, we do a number of different projects to understand how research is conducted, to try different interventions, to move towards more open and reproducible practices, and evaluate that work. One of those outcomes was trying to replicate some cancer biology research and learning as we went through that process. We've done this previously in psychology, which all of these initiatives are, again, meant to help advance the mission and to help us all kind of be more open and transparent and reproducible in our work. So I just wanted to give that backdrop, but I'm actually here as a representative within the NIH program, the Generalist Repository Ecosystem Initiative, that's actually referred to as GRAY, just to make that mouthful a little bit shorter. And so one of the aspects of that NIH really felt strongly about was moving forward with a policy for data sharing as a funder of research. This was how they felt they could play a role in advancement of that. And so what they did as part of that work is to take a look at the different repository landscape for data sharing, and understanding that there's multiple different places that data can be shared. Domain-specific repositories, your institutional repository, and then also generalist repositories. And so they felt strongly that not always are the solutions available, and that leveraging generalist repositories as a solution was something that they wanted to promote and support through the program. I am going to challenge you to be a little bit interactive. I know we had the coffee break, we've had some caffeine, and so just to keep everybody engaged, I wanted to ask you if you have your phone or your laptop to just, I only have 3 of these, so it's not going to take over, but if you wouldn't mind going to Slido, you can either use the QR code or you can go to slido.com and enter the 2104617 number, and it should give you this question, this active poll, just to understand where do you share your data. So I showed you 3 different options, and I'm curious to know, and so is the Gray community at large, how do you share your data today? Where is that happening? Is it happening in the domain-specific repository, an institutional, or a generalist, or maybe none of these, which is also a fine answer, but my hope is that it's in one of these so that it can be more accessible to the broader community. So hopefully that's working, and you can provide your response there, which I will bring back to Gray just to help bring more knowledge to us to how we might support the bioimaging community. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about Gray because I've sort of said it, but I haven't told you exactly what it is. At least generally speaking, it is a sort of collaboration, if you will, in that it is a representation of multiple generalist repositories, and you can see them mentioned at the top: Dataverse, Figshare, OSF, the one I represent, Zenodo, Dryad, Mendeley Data, and Vivly. So all of us are working together on common capabilities that we can all share. And those are in support of NIH's goal to increase researchers sharing data and reusing data. And there are some 5 main sort of objectives of the work that we're doing. To make it easier to share. Obviously, there's challenges, I think, at times, maybe specifically within some of the metadata that people have been talking about. So that's exciting to hear advancements that we can collaborate on. To enable improved discoverability of the data across generalist repositories. There's more there we can talk about, so I'll come back to that one. Support the reproducibility of their funded research, avoid duplication across different repositories, and encourage researchers to both contribute and consume to increase that reuse of data. You can scan that QR code too if you're interested in learning more about Gray. And I'll talk a little bit more about generalist repositories. One fundamental principle that is required for all of them is to accept data regardless of the type, the format, the content, the disciplinary focus, or the methodology. So that's really important, and one of the key components I want to talk about with all of you is recognizing you have great solutions for bioimaging data. But that doesn't mean that the generalist repositories don't play a role in how you share, disseminate, communicate, discover the research across the life cycle transparently. So just let's keep talking about that as we go, but I just wanted to mention that. Okay, hold on, I have to pull my phone out 1 second to turn on the second poll, which should now be available. I'm curious to know if you've ever interacted with any of those generalist repositories that I mentioned in talking previously. Just curious, yes or no. It would just be helpful for us at Gray to understand how we might continue to collaborate with you all. All right, so just to talk a little bit about NIH's culture of data sharing, and I think really meant to talk about North America, talk about how we might collaborate, because I believe all of this is global. I don't think there's borders on data and consuming and reusing of data, so we do have to recognize that our solutions need to interoperate with each other. And it started way back in 2003, thinking about a policy for data sharing, lots of interaction with the community to gather information, obviously to understand the needs and the challenges which I think has led to the solution working with generous repositories. There weren't solutions. That was the #1 barrier to NIH advancing their policy. So it's fantastic that they recognized that and had worked towards some solutions to help enable this. And so you'll see in 2020 we held a workshop. We worked together across all of these different repositories. And what's interesting, and I don't want to leave it to the side for the purposes of this discussion, you might consider these generous repositories competitors to one another. Some of them are not nonprofits. They're actually commercialized, closed solutions. And you also have on the other end of the spectrum solutions like OSF that are open source, nonprofit, very open solutions. And so sustainability and competing with one another was a key aspect that got worked out in that workshop. So we call it a co-opetition, meaning we collaborate on some things and we compete on other things, and we have set a value line for where that falls. And so what you'll hear next is a bit more of where we were able to collaborate and find solutions that were shared across that didn't cause us to sort of fall into that zone of competition that was uncomfortable. All that to say, it led to the launch of the GRAY Initiative, and the data sharing policy soon followed. I just want to talk a little bit about bioimaging and think about where generous repositories could help provide some solutions. So thinking about how there's a common metadata standard that has been realized across that consortia of repositories, and that enables interoperability across all of us, but could be with other solutions as well. So that means we could have more cross-disciplinary linking, sustainability, and inclusive access. I'm being told to stop, so I will wrap up here just by mentioning there are lots of different activities related to this metadata work that we've done, and I've already sort of listened to the predecessors talking about how we might be able to collaborate further to expand our metadata standard to incorporate more of the needs within this community. That was my last poll, but we can skip it. The last slide that I just wanted to share on the screen is just a little bit more about how you can get in touch with GRAY and be involved in our setting of priorities and giving us feedback about some of the resources that we've been developing for the community. Thank you very much.